everyone. It's really lovely to have you with us today. My name is Judith Pucci. I'm a Tribute Center walking tour guide. Because all of us at Tribute have had our lives personally affected by the events of September 11th, our stories provide a very personal insight to a day that changed all of our lives. So this afternoon you're going to hear two of our stories. They're going to be told to you by Tracy G and Dolores Hurley, or as Dolores is known to all them who love her, Cookie. Dolores works for Morgan Stanley, and she has been with the financial services firm for over 20 years. Morgan Stanley was the largest tenant in the World Trade Center. The company occupied over 20 floors in the South Tower, and they had about 3,000 employees. The South Tower, as you may remember, was the second building that was attacked that morning. Tracy is a now retired New York City school teacher. Her son, Terry, worked for Cantor Fitzgerald. It was a bond trading firm. Cantor occupied several floors near the top of the other tower, the North Tower, the one that was hit first that morning. Terry was Tracy's only child. We're going to begin with Dolores' story, so I'm just going to very briefly set the scene for you. When the first plane hit the North Tower, Dolores was at her desk on the 64th floor of the other building. So she, along with thousands of people in that building, had to make a decision whether to stay at their desks or to evacuate. That may sound like an odd decision to have to make, but many people who were in the second tower, the South Tower, they were not aware of what happened in terms of the plane crashing into the first tower. So I'm going to let you take it from there.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for the introduction. On September 11th, 2001, I sat in the stairwell on the 25th floor, Tower 2, and I knew I was going to die. And how I got there was that I had just walked down 40 flights of stairs from my office on the 64th floor of Tower 2. My coworkers and I had run to the stairwell because we stood in the middle of the office and just watched burning desks, papers, burning chairs, just hurtling toward our windows. We were on the southwest corner, and of course, everything was windows. You could see New Jersey, if you wanted to. And but everything was flames were just hurtling out of Tower 1. My boss at the time, she had been in the building during the 93 bombing, so she had a little bit experience of getting out. The first thing she did was just get out, everybody out. I just grabbed my pocketbook off the desk. We headed straight for the stairwell, my coworkers and I, and we didn't even think about going to the elevator. We had been at least trained at that, not to do that. Starting down the stairwell, it was slow going in the beginning. You think, oh, here we go again, another drill. And there was only room in the stairwell for two people side by side. One side was where the banister was. Of course, the other side was people that were moving a little bit faster. I wasn't moving that fast. I had arthritis. I had had foot surgery some months prior to that. So I was going one step at a time. And all I kept thinking was, oh my goodness, it's going to be a long, long way down. On the way down, as you kept going flight after flight, and more people started coming into the stairwell, those people that were on the left side running down were getting that much more anxious. And they started to move a little faster and push and shove. So two of my coworkers decided that they were going to be my protectors. I had a longtime friend behind me, John, and I had a young fellow that I had just recently met in front of me, Greg. So they were going to be protecting me from the masses that were racing down the left-hand side. And we're going down. I knew John for a long time. He was a longtime friend. Greg, I didn't know all that well. I had just met him. The only reason I just met him was because his wife had a baby, and I gave him a gift for the baby. So I only knew him a little bit. He worked on the other side of the floor from us. But anyway, these two fellows decided they were going to stick with me and protect me from the masses, so to speak. As we're moving down slowly, all of a sudden there was this horrific, loud boom. The building stairwell shook. There was an eerie silence. It's almost as if you were in a vacuum, and the building started to sway. Fortunately for me, I was holding on to the banister going down one step at a time, but the building just swayed. It went back and forth and back and forth. I knew it swayed at least 5 feet because when it swayed to the left, as I was holding onto the banister, my back touched the stairs. I knew it went pretty far. And at the same time that it was swaying, people were hurtling over my head and being thrown against the wall. They fell down the stairs. And what seemed like forever, but was probably only a minute, the building stopped swaying. Fortunately, I was still holding on. I just sat down. This is it. I was sure that Tower 1 fell over on us. And that was my first thought, because up until this time, didn't know what was going on. There were all kinds of rumors, and nobody really knew. So I thought Tower 1 fell over. Man, this is it. I'm not getting out of here. I know I'm not. Greg was down on the next landing. John was behind me. He's going, Cook, come on, Cook. We got to move. We got to move. I said, John, I just can't do it. My legs are giving out. I can't go anymore. Greg's at the bottom, and he's saying, Cookie, come on. We got to go. We got to go. And I said, look, go without me. I'll be fine. I don't want you guys to lose your life because of me. You'll be able to get out. Just go. And I can see Greg's face right now staring up at me and saying, you know what, Cookie, if my mother finds out that I left you here, she'll kill me. So there's no way. I'm not leaving. And, you know, in those few seconds that he said that, I started thinking about him, his new baby. I started thinking about my own family. You know, what's my mother going to say? What's my kids going to say about me? And here I am just sitting here. And, you know, I knew my kids and my friends would be saying, oh, we know Mommy, she fought to the last second. Cookie didn't give up. She'd crawl if she had to. You know, she would just keep going and keep moving. And she's going to get home. We know she's going to make it, you know. And by this time, I think people figured that, you know, I was still in the building and under it. So in thinking of that, I really didn't want to make my kids liars. I had always fought through adversity and things that happened in our lives. We had a fire in our house. We lost everything. I kind of shrugged it off with the help of some people, got new stuff. You know, it's only stuff. Nobody lost their life. My husband lost his job, had 4 kids, no insurance, no money. Oh, well, so you get a job, you make a little money, he gets a new job. You know, things happen in life. I mean, with 4 kids and not a second job, my son wanted to go to the prom, so my girlfriend and I delivered newspapers at night to make extra money so we could go. You get through adversity. And I thought, you know, I'm not the type of person to just sit here. I grabbed a hold of the banister, I pulled my butt up off the stairs, and I started moving. And yeah, it hurt. My legs were killing me. And it just kept moving, and I don't know what kept me going. Maybe at this point it was adrenaline, but Greg and John were still in front of me and behind me. By this time, people were racing down the stairs. We still had another 25 to go, and I thought, I'm not going to think about it. Just going to keep going. Just going to keep moving. I am going to move every second that I possibly can move before this comes down on top of me. We finally get to the bottom. Greg and John are still with me. At this point, trying to walk on flat ground, my legs just really gave out. And the two of them just lifted me up under my arms, and they kind of said, Cookie, pick up your legs. Pick up your legs. They're not dragging you, you know. And so I kind of tried to bend my knees a little bit, and they're carrying me out. But we hit a snag. We had to go back in. We were going to exit on the plaza. We had to go back in. We had to go to another exit, which was out on Church Street, instead of the one we were going to. So at this point, I still couldn't put both legs down. They were going to give out. Fireman came along. He said, you guys need some help. And boy, did they, because I wasn't a lightweight either. And one of the firemen picked me up on one arm. Greg got me under the other arm and carried me the rest of the way from under where all the shops were up to where the Borders bookstore was, where we could finally get freedom and daylight. And we get to over by Borders, and I look up and say, oh, geez, one more staircase, you know, one more stairwell to go. And John said to me, you know, Cookie, can you make it? And I said, yeah, I can make it. I just came down to 65. I can make it. I could do one more. And I knew then that I was getting home. I wasn't going to stay in the stairwell. I was getting home that night. And the rest of the day was extremely eventful. It would take hours to go through all the events and stories that we went to. But I am so grateful to be able to stand here and share this story with you. When I got home, my friend Margaret was here in the audience. My family, they were waiting for me at the house. I think it was the best I had ever felt in my entire life. I knew I could get through just about anything after getting through that. And I am extremely grateful to those people that they didn't make it out. I don't know why I did, but I know that because I did make it out, I feel obligated to tell my story and share it with you. Thank you.
Within Cookie's company, 13 of Morgan Stanley's employees were killed that morning. And that included a man named Rick Riscola. Rick, you might even have heard his name. He got a great deal of news coverage, and rightly so. Rick was the head of security for Morgan Stanley, and he ran safety and evacuation drills, which paid off that morning. He was sort of notorious for insisting upon these evacuation drills. He and his emergency preparations are credited with helping to save the lives of more than 2,700 people at Morgan Stanley. Rick, however, did not survive. He died when the South Tower came down. Now, Tracy, her son Terry, unlike Dolores, Terry did not have the option of leaving his building. He could not get out of the North Tower. Access to all the elevators and stairways had been destroyed by the plane, leaving him and everyone else who was above the impact zone with no way out. So I'm going to leave it to you, Tracy.
It was Sunday afternoon, September 16th. Marty and I were finally asking our family members to go home. We knew that we had to do our grieving, and we knew that we had to begin to pick up our lives together. We also assured them that we were going to be okay, and that I knew that I would always keep in touch with them. I knew they also were grieving from our son Terry, who was lost in the North Tower on the 104th floor and working with Cantor Fitzgerald. That afternoon, Marty decided to go down to the Family Center, which was housed on Pier 94 on the Upper West Side. I needed time alone, so I stayed home the rest of the day. About 5 o'clock that evening, Marty came home and he said he insisted upon us getting into therapy very quickly. Fortunately, our parish, St. Patrick's in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, had opened up their hearts. The therapists in the community had opened up their hearts, saying that they would assist anybody who need help after 9/11. So we took advantage of that. We set up an appointment for Saturday, September 22nd, and Marty and I met our therapist, Hugh. He lived in the neighborhood, and we introduced ourselves, told our story about losing Terry. And right away, Marty started with, Tracy was much closer to Terry than I was, and I almost died. I didn't know where that came from. And I looked at him, I grabbed his hand, and I said, Marty, you did so many things with Terry and for Terry. And I began to enumerate the many things that he did with Terry. From a 7-year-old building a racing car for the Tiger Cubs, to coaching his baseball team, to helping him while he was in the 6th grade with math. I had reached my level, so he was helping him. He also used to confide in his father many stories about when he was a bouncer as a young man in college, and he would tell his father. He would not tell me. My husband did tell me later. But at any rate, he would tell story. He would confide in Marty about, did you make the right decision about this or that? So Marty didn't, really make that attachment. I also mentioned to him that he and Terry also began to watch the series Band of Brothers, and they really connected through that. But Marty he said, oh yeah, I guess you're right. But I never felt truly comfortable that he understood what a great role model that his father was. It was the morning in November of 2001, and I was going through Terry's clothes. I knew one of his cousins, Timmy, who was at Cortland University, could use Terry's clothes. He was studying for his master's, and I thought, well, why should I let these beautiful things go to waste? So I got out one of Terry's old gym bags, and a little voice said to me, check the side pockets. Well, I went into the side pockets and pulled out 4 pieces of loose leaf paper. And the first page was titled, My Goals for Family, Friends, and Business, Professional Life. And I began reading these pages. Terry's second goal talked about his friends and how he treasured his friends. He was very committed to his friends and how he always wanted to continue to always be a good friend. The third was about his professional life. He was, of course, working at Cantor Fitzgerald, so he wanted to take more risks and he wanted to take on more responsibility. His first goal was for his family and how he truly loved his family, how he wanted to be like his Uncle Tim, who always kept the family together, and how he would always be a role model for his younger cousins, and that he always wanted to take care of us, Marty, in our golden years. So I ran down the stairs and I showed these papers to Marty, and I said to him, what validation this is for us as parents, to read these things, to know that we had raised a caring and loving person. And it was just so wonderful for us to read these words. It was hard to read Terry's writing because he wrote like in chicken scratch, but we managed. And Marty was feeling so good about it. The one thing came back to me was that first therapy session that we had, and he was not feeling close to Marty. And I remembered a story that happened on September 10th. We were downstairs watching television, and I knew Marty and Terry were going to be watching Band of Brothers. So I decided to excuse myself and go upstairs. I walked upstairs. Terry followed me. And he said to me, Ma, let me backtrack just a little bit. That very day, Marty got a second job because income-wise, we needed the extra income. So Marty went to get a second job, and it was database entry for the Board of Elections. So I go upstairs. Terry follows me upstairs, and he goes, Mom, you can't have Daddy working at that job. Please don't make Daddy work at that job. It's an awful job. It's the worst kind of a job. Mom, I did those jobs. It's awful. He'll die there. He'll die of boredom. And I just looked at Terry, and I was so amazed. And he was so energetic and so forceful about the whole situation. And I looked at him and I said, Terry, it's okay. Daddy will be okay. He wants to do this, and he'll be okay. But I felt like such an ogre, like I was the bad guy making Daddy do this terrible job. So he said to me, I said to him, Daddy will be okay, and it'll be all right. Well, I shared that story with Marty that afternoon in November, and I said, you see, he was always watching out for you. He always was. And he was protecting you from me. So I said he had your very, very best interest at heart, and he cared about you, and he knew you were a terrific role model. Marty realized that their relationship was on the upswing at that point in time, but unfortunately, on September 11th, it was taken away from him. We as a family come together and celebrate Terry in only the best of ways. We talk about him, tell about great stories. We also, are just so grateful that we had 24 wonderful years with this kid. And I thank you so much for listening to my story. Thank you.
No company lost more people that day than did Cantor Fitzgerald. 658 of their employees died just like that. That was about 2/3 of their workforce. For Tracy, she has been a tribute center guide for a little over 6 years now. Right? Actually, to be really accurate, I should say that Tracy has been a beloved tribute center guide. She's going to speak to me later about that. When not giving tours, she frequently shares her story with school groups, and she tells these kids about those notes of Terry's that she found, and she encourages these children to embrace life and to work to make their dreams come true, because they still have that opportunity. So what I'd like to do now is just take a moment, collect your thoughts, and open this up to all of you. If you have any questions for either Cookie or Tracy, they'd be very happy to answer them. Oh, I see something in the back.
Dolores, was it hard for you to come back to Lower Manhattan after 9/11?
Was it hard for Dolores to come back to this part of the city after September 11th?
Actually, I had to come back, had to go to work. Morgan Stanley, they transferred us to a different section, and it was probably about 3 weeks later I had to come back into downtown. That's where the bus drops off, and I walked over by the site. Then at that time you could get closer to the rubble, and I had my cry, and I thought to myself, life goes on. It was difficult for that short period of time, and it does get difficult at times when I start to think about the Twin Towers, because I love those buildings. I just miss them. I still miss them. I had so many good times around the area with my coworkers, in the buildings, around the buildings. I just miss them. And it's at those times I still have trouble with it.
Anyone else? All right. Well, if you do, oh
Somebody
yes.
back in there.
Oh, please. How long did it take Cookie to actually exit the building and then to get home?
We were downstairs. We estimated probably about 9:30. So it took about 45 minutes for me to get down the stairs. As it turns out, approximately about 15 minutes later, the building came down. I did not get home until 11 o'clock that night. Like I said, it was an eventful day
To put it mildly.
to get home.
Well, if any of you do have another question after the program, we will be right outside the exit door, and we would really be happy to continue this conversation. I want to thank you. You're welcome. Thank you both.
You're very welcome.
No, it was generous to do this.
Very welcome. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you as well. By being here, you make it possible for our very personal stories to take on a broader significance, to become a way for all of us to share in this communal history of ours, and to remember and really value the humanity that binds us. So on behalf of all of us, I want to say thank you again, and I want you to know that if the time you've spent with us winds up enriching your visit here at the museum today, we would be delighted. So thank you for sharing your time with us.